Hello everyone, Neo here. Today I'll be making another video on Columbine and doing an analysis on Eric Harris. At this point, we all know what the Columbine massacre was and the two main perpetrators of the tragedy, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. I'll be taking a look at Dylan in perhaps another video, but for this one specifically, I wanted to focus on Eric Harris. Now, we know that the two boys talked about harassment and the bullying they endured while enrolled at Columbine High School through their journal entries. But people think that just because Eric and Dylan may have been bullied so intensively that they just snapped and chosen to retaliate in the worst imaginable way possible back at the school. However, while reading through pages among pages of Jeffco documents related to the incident, I believe that Eric was just a disturbed individual who held other motivations for the assault and had bigger plans in mind. Harassment was not a one-way street at Columbine. In actuality, Eric engaged in his own harassment of other students as well. Eric, Dylan, and other boys threatened and intimidated another student to the point that he was in tears and afraid to attend school. Thus, Eric was not only a victim of harassment, but a perpetrator of harassment too. He had a bad temper, and there were many students who were alienated by his belligerent behavior. Nonetheless, during the attack, Eric made comments directed at jocks and claimed that he was getting revenge on people for mistreating him. Such statements, however, need to be considered carefully and viewed within the context of everything else we know about Eric. While in the school library, where most of the killing occurred, Eric told the jocks to stand up so he could shoot them. He also, however, told everyone to stand up. And he didn't just shoot jocks, he shot people indiscriminately, and none of the people he had shot had ever bullied him, so despite his claim, this wasn't revenge. In fact, the only reason Eric was even in the library is that the major bombs he and Dylan placed in the cafeteria did not detonate. The failure of these bombs to explode forced Eric to improvise. He had planned to blow up the school and kill hundreds of people, including his own friends. He also had bombs set off to go in the parking lot to kill parents, rescue workers, law enforcement personnel, and people from the media. The attack was not focused on jocks or anyone else. Eric just wanted to kill on a large scale. He wanted to be remembered for committing the most deadly terroristic attack in United States history. He wrote, "I want to leave a lasting impression on the world." To focus on what Eric said in the midst of the attacks is to ignore so much of what we know about him. It ignores the fact that Eric said he loved school, and that he wrote, "Don't blame the school, the administration is doing a fine job." It ignores the fact that Eric engaged in a variety of criminal behaviors, including theft, credit card fraud, and vandalism. It ignores his obsession with setting fires and making bombs just because it was fun. It ignores his preoccupation with being a godlike being and writing "Ich bin Gott" in his school planner and the yearbooks of several friends. That phrase loosely interpretates to "I am God." Sorry if I butchered the German pronunciation. But it also ignores his fantasies about blowing up Denver, crashing a plane into New York City, and destroying humanity. It ignores Eric's fascination with Hitler and natural selection, his multiple rants about killing mentally retarded people, and everyone else he viewed as inferior, and the fact that on the day of the attack, he wore a shirt that said natural selection. It ignores Eric's sadistic fantasies of raping girls he knew and ripping a knife through a human body just for fun. It ignores the fact that when Eric had a falling out with a friend, he vandalized the boy's car and home, posted a homicidal threat on his website, and wrote about wanting to go to the boy's home and spit on him and his family, urinate on them, and torture them before blowing up the house. Clearly, Eric was not an average young man. Whatever harassment Eric experienced at school may have fanned the flames of his rage or given him a convenient excuse for his rampage, but there was far more going on inside the mind of him than just the anger or the mistreatment. He wanted to play God and have the power of life and death over others. He wrote, "I would love to be the ultimate judge and say if a person lives or dies. Be godlike." On April 20th, 1999, Eric made his wish come true. School shooters tend to act impulsively and attack the targets of their rage, students and faculty, but Harris and Klebold planned for a year and dreamed much bigger. The school served as a ground zero a means to a grander end, to terrorize the entire nation by attacking a symbol of American life. Their slaughter was aimed at students and teachers, but it was not just motivated by resentment of them in particular. Students and teachers were just convenient quarry, what Timothy McVeigh described as collateral damage. The killers, in fact, laughed at petty school shooters. They bragged about dwarfing the carnage at the Oklahoma City bombing, and originally scheduled their bloody performance for its anniversary. Klebold boasted on video about inflicting the most deaths in U.S. history. Columbine was intended not primarily as a shooting at all, but as a bombing on a massive scale. If they hadn't been so bad at wiring the timers, the propane bombs they set in the cafeteria would have wiped out 600 people. After those bombs went off, they planned to gun down fleeing survivors. An explosive third act would follow, when their cars packed with more bombs would rip through crowds of people, presumably survivors, rescue workers, and reporters. The climax would be captured on live television. It wasn't just fame they were after, they were gunning for devastating infamy on a historical scale. Their vision was to create a nightmare so powerful and apocalyptic that the entire world would shudder.